Assalamu alaikum students, this is Farwa Batul, your O-level computer science instructor, and welcome to another video for chapter number 8 programming. We are done with the iterations in the previous videos, and now in this video we will starting with a new topic of programming, that is totaling and counting. It is a very important concept. It allows us to do totaling and counting in different scenarios. Now, what it is actually? Let me just quickly tell you totaling first. Let's suppose I have a student named Farwa. Farwa has attained different marks in different subjects. Let's suppose in maths, it is 30, in science, it is 50, in social studies, it is 40, in Urdu or language, it is 20. So these are the different marks that a student attained in different subjects. So in order to calculate its result, we have to do total mark. We have to calculate total marks in which we need to add all of these marks to get our result. So the result for this is 30 plus 50, 80. 80 plus 40 is 120. 120 plus 20 is 140. So in this case, the total result, total marks becomes 140. So this is actually how the totaling method works for us. So let me quickly share you the formula that we use in Python. Let's just do everything in this video using Python as my programming language. In the next video we will use Visual Basic, and after that we will use Java as my programming language. So first we will discuss everything in Python here in this video. So if I talk about totaling in Python, the syntax that is used for totaling is, let's suppose, total marks. Let's talk about marks. Total marks equals total marks plus marks. Here marks are basically the individual marks of your subject, and total marks are going to be the final result of all the marks of your uh, different subjects. Now, how it actually works? It works using a loop structure or using iterations. If you don't know what is iterations, please go ahead and watch the previous videos. So what will happen? In the first iteration, mark, let's suppose we put the initial values for total mark is 0 and marks is 0. There is no data in total marks and marks. Let's just initialize these variables with 0. Let me write here in my memory. I have two variables. One is total mark. It has some value, and other one is marks. It is having some value. So these are my two variables. Initially, I put a value 0 in both of them. Now what will happen? For the first iteration, 0 plus 0 is 0. We have initial value 0. Now let's start with the loop structure. For the first iteration, what will happen? Marks is set to 30. The user inputs marks for maths. Let's suppose it is 30. So how the formula is going to work? It becomes 30 plus 0. So total mark will be calculated as 30. Let's quickly make changes in memory. It is 30 now for the first iteration because you put marks as 30. So total marks becomes 0 plus 30, which is 30. Now for the second iteration, the marks that are being entered are 50. The science marks are entered by the user. So what will happen here? 30 was the previous value of total marks. 30 plus 50, it becomes 80 now. So when you calculate total marks in the second iteration, it is 30 plus 50 and the new value is 80. Now talking about your third iteration, in the third iteration the marks that the user enters is for social studies and it is 40. So what will happen? 40 will be added to the previous value of total marks. It was 80 before, 80 plus 40, it becomes 120. So 120 is the updated value for total marks for the 3 marks being entered. So in the third iteration, total marks equals 80 plus 40, which is equal to 120. So 120 is the updated value of total marks. And for the last iteration, the fourth iteration, what will happen? The marks are for Urdu, it is 20. 20 plus the previous value for total weight was 120. So 120 plus 20 becomes 140. So 140 is going to be the final result for iteration number 4. 20 total weight is calculated as, sorry, not total weight, total marks equals 120 plus 20, and the final result is 140. So this is how the totaling method is going to work using iterations. It is going to give you the total of all the data that you insert. Now we are done with totaling. Let me quickly move towards counting. What is counting? Okay, let me tell you that what is the formula for counting in Python. Counting is, let's just make it simple, and okay, what we can do here, we can consider the number of items. Let's suppose there is a cart, a user came for shopping, and he has to purchase some items. So what the method of counting is going to do? Method of counting is going to tell you the total items he got purchased, total number of items. So it is not actually the total price, it is actually the number of items he has selected. So we can use the formula as, let's suppose it is number of items that we are calculating. So it becomes number of items equal number of items plus 1. So here in the memory, you are initializing a variable named as number of items. And what will be done when we will use this in iterations or in loop structures? So for every iteration, its value will be incremented by 1. Let's suppose number of items was 0 before your loop. It was 0, so let's put 0 in the memory. And once the user will start entering number of items, so what will happen? We will start with our loop structure. Loop begins, and for the first iteration, when the formula will run, it will become 0 plus 1 is 1. So number of items for the first iteration becomes 1. So it is calculated as, number of items was the name of my variable that I'm using. The initial value was 0, 1 was added into it, 0 plus 1 becomes 1. So 1 is the current value. Let's suppose a user has put one item into the basket. Let's suppose these are some biscuits. So it is in the loop 1. In the second iteration, let's suppose the user buys some milk. So that is going to be your next item. So for this, number of items will become now, it was previously in the first iteration, it was updated to 1. So what you will do, you will add 1 into its previous value. 1 plus 1 becomes 2 now. So 2 is the new value for number of items. We know that 2 items are being added into the cart. The next one is, let's suppose he bought some eggs. So The pack of X, it is one pack. So we will consider it as one item. So what you can do for the third iteration, the previous value for number of items was 2. 2 plus 1 becomes 3 now. So in the third iteration, the number of items becomes 2 plus 1, that is 3. So we will just keep it here. I hope that you are getting the concept of this. So by the end of your shopping, you will get a receipt in which the name of your items will be mentioned and the total items will be mentioned. So the total items or the number of items it will be calculated as you bought milk 1, you bought eggs, pack of eggs 1, you bought biscuits, pack of biscuit 1. So the final result of number of items becomes 3 here. And the next thing will be the total price that will be calculated using the method of totaling. So here in different bills, we are actually using these two methods. Practically, we are using counting that shows us the number of items that we purchased, and we use totaling in order to calculate the total price of all of the items that we have bought so we can pay the bill. So I hope the things are clear to you now. Let me quickly move towards activity 8.7 so that the things will be more clear to you. Okay, so here we go. This is activity 8.7 that we will be doing by using Python as my programming language. And the good thing here is you are going to use both of the methods. You will use totaling and counting in this single activity. Okay, so let's just start with it. In the high-level programming language that your school has chosen to use, write and run a short program using a condition control loop to allow the user to input the weight of sacks of rice. Sorry for this. And to count the number of sacks the user has input. When the user types in -1, this should stop the process and the program should then output. This is very important. What must be displayed to the user? Number of sacks and the total weight. Okay, so what is needed here? Here, a user, let me make it small. A user is going to give us input. And what is the input? Input will be the weight of the sack of rice and the number of sack. We don't know that how many sack of rice he has. Let's suppose he's having, we don't know what is the what is the number of sack actually. But what is this program will do? He is going to enter the weight of different sack of rice that he has. Let's suppose 2 kg, 5 kg, and so on. And by the end of the program, we must tell the user that what is the total weight of all of these sack of rice and how many sack of rice you have entered or the number of sack of rice. This is actually if he has entered the weight for 4 sack of rice, we will output 4 by the end of our program. If it is 6, we will input 6. So it only depends upon the number of user that how many sack of rice he's gonna enter. Now, when this program will end or when your loop will end, when the weight that the user enters is -1. So -1 is the condition that is going to terminate your loop structure. Now, let me quickly show you the code that we will use it in Python. Okay. The first thing here is you are using some variables. First one is your weight, weight of your rice. This weight is actually the individual weight of sack of rice. Let's suppose for one individual sack, we are inputting the weight here. Every time the user has to enter this value. So initially, the weight of sack of rice is 0. Let's put it 0. Next, you have total weight. Total weight will be calculated when you will be having lot of weights that are being entered by the user. So you will calculate the total weight, 2 kg, 5 kg, 6 kg, 7 kg. So all of the weights will be added into the formula, and then the total weight of the sack of rice will be calculated. For this, we are using another variable, total weight, and we will initialize it by 0. Next, you must be having another number of sacks of rice. So this is another variable that is going to help us to display how many sack of rice he has entered. So the number of sacks actually. So we will also initialize it with 0. Now these are the variables that we're gonna use in our program. So we declared and initialize it in the beginning. Now next what you will be doing for the first sack of rice, you will input the weight outside your loop. Why? Because let's suppose there is no sack of rice, so the user enters -1. So there is no need to go inside your loop. We will check the condition in a precondition loop and we will not calculate the total weight. For this, I'm just putting an input statement before my loop structure. It is weight equals int is the keyword for integer. Actually, my input data must be parsed into integer data type. That's why I have written this in Python. Inside, you will be having your input statement that is going to get the input from the user. And let's just tell the user what to enter. Enter the weight or simply weight of the sack of rice. Let's make it a small rice. This is, let's suppose, the output message that will be shown to the user in order to get the weight for the first sack of rice. Now it is converted into integer value and then the value is stored for the first weight into the weight variable. Next, what you will do, you will start with your while loop. While is basically a condition control loop. So you have to put a condition here that must be true in order to go inside the loop. So remember that the termination condition is when weight value is equal to -1. If the user enters weight as -1, so the loop must terminate. But we must put a condition that will keep the loop running. So in other words, if you want the loop to run, the condition must be weight is not equal to -1. So the loop will continuously run or the weight will be calculated inside the loop when the value of weight is not -1. So you will keep on calculating total weight and the number of sack inside your loop till its value becomes -1. So this condition needs to be true all the time in order to have a new iteration. Now let's go inside. You must use indentation for all of the loop instructions. The instructions that are inside your loop, you must do indentation there. Okay, so the first thing here is inside the loop, you are using the totaling method to calculate the total weight. Total weight equals total weight plus weight. Here I am using the totaling method in order to calculate the total weight of the sack of rice that are being entered. One by one it will be calculated for each iteration. Next, what will you do in the loop structure? You will increment the number of sack in the variable, or number of sack variable is going to have a plus 1. It is incremented with plus 1 in each iteration. That indicates that one more sack is being added, or the weight of one more sack is being entered by the user. So every time when the weight is being entered by the user, the total weight will be updated and the number of sack will be incremented by 1. Now the next thing is, inside the loop you again have to input the value for the weight. Why? Because this was for the first sack of rice and this is going to be for the next sack of rice. Let's suppose second, third, fourth and so on. We don't know that how many weights or how many sack of rice the user has. So for the continuous input, we are putting an input statement inside the loop. So it will be just same as before, weight equals int for data parsing to convert the input into integer. Then you will put your input statement using an input keyword, and inside that write down the same message, enter weight of the sack of rice. So that's it. This is going to be the display message that's gonna help user to enter the weight. That's it. These are your loop instructions. What will you do next? Once you go out of your loop, both of these values, total weight and number of sacks, will be calculated. So you just need to print both of them. Just write down print statement. Write the message as total weight of the sacks of the sack of rice. This is going to be, you have to mention the variable total weight outside your quotations or these. So basically why we are doing it outside our commas, the quotations, because total weight is a variable and we need its value to be printed next to our message. Next, what you have to do, print another thing that is needed here, that is the number of sack of rice that are entered, that the user has entered, put a colon here, close the quotations. Next, you have the variable that is holding number of sacks actually will be mentioned here. That's it. These are going to be your two display messages. Now let me quickly trace this program for you, and next we will also see this in my Python online editor, that how it actually works. So for your understanding, I'm just going to trace this program here. So first of all, in my memory, there are three variables. The first one is weight, that has a value 0. Then you have total weight, that is also initialized with 0. And the third one is number of sacks, that is also initialized with 0. These are my three variables. Now next, what you have to do in your output. This is the output screen that must be visible to the user. Okay, these three instructions are basically initializing the values into the variables. Next, you will input weight for the first sack of rice. So it will show you a message here. It's an input statement showing the user a display message that will be visible on the screen. It's written that enter weight of the sack of rice. This is the message that must be displayed to the user. Next, what the user does. Let's suppose for the first time he enters weight 20. Or one more thing, let me tell you that why I have written one input statement outside the loop. Let's suppose there is no sack of rice he has. So let's suppose he enters -1 for the first time. So what will happen? It is going to check the condition. The condition becomes false for the first time. So you will not be able to do any iterations. Since you have no sack of rice, the weight was -1, and then you just print it as number of sack are 0 and total weight is also 0 because it was initialized as 0 previously. Now, what if there are different number of sack of rice that we have? So what you will be doing, you will entering its weight one by one. So if the user enters for the first time, let's suppose he enters 5 kg or simply 5. So what will happen? The loop will run for it because the condition is true now. Weight is not equal to -1. Remember that when your condition is true, only then you are going inside your loop. So let's just run all these loop statements. Total weight is 0. 0 plus weight that is entered for the first iteration was 5. 5 is the value that is entered by the user for weight. So 0 plus 5 becomes 5. Total weight is updated to 5 in my first iteration. Let's suppose we have 3 sack of rice. Let's just make it simple. The user is entering 3 sack of rice with different weights. The first one is a 5 kg, then a 3 kg, and then a 2 kg. So let's see how the result will come up. So the first iteration, it is 5 plus 0 is 5 is your total weight. Number of sec will become 0 plus 1. 0 plus 1 is 1. So 1 is here updated in the memory for number of secs. The user has entered weight for the first sack of rice. Now the total weight is calculated. Next, what will happen? This input will again be taken by the user from the user for entering the second weight. So the user again will see the same message, enter weight of the sack of rice. So this time, let's suppose the user enters a value 3 for the second sack of rice. What will happen? The loop will go on and check for the condition. Here the condition is 3, weight value is 3 now. 3 not equals to -1, which is true. So you will go inside your loop. The first statement will be total weight was 5 in the previous iteration. So 5 plus 3 becomes 8. So the formula will be like this. 5 will be in total weight, 3 will be in weight. 5 plus 3 becomes 8. So now let me quickly update the value of weight and total weight in the memory. Weight was entered as 3 for the second sack of rice and total weight was calculated as 8. 5 plus 3. Now number of sack will be updated to 2 because the previous value of number of sack was 1. 1 plus 1 becomes 2. So let's just put 2 here and 2 in the memory. So number of sack is being up incremented. Now for the third sack of rice, the user is going to see this display message again. It is your input statement. Enter weight of the sack of rice. This time for the third sack of rice, the weight is 2 kg. So let's put it 2 here. 2 is the next input value. So what will happen? It will check for the condition. 2 is not equal to minus 1. The condition is true here. When it is true, we will go inside the loop. Total weight was 8 in the memory. 8 plus weight value was taken as input and it is 2 for the third sack of rice. 8 plus 2 becomes 10. 10 is your total weight. Number of sack will be incremented. It was 2 previously. In the memory, 2 plus 3 becomes 2 plus 1 becomes 3. So let's quickly update all of these variable values in the memory. The weight for the third iteration was 2. Total weight is calculated as 10 and number of sack are now 3. So for the third sack of rice, when the user will see the input message that enter weight of the sack of rice. Now for the fourth time, there is no sack of rice. So the user enters -1. When it enter -1 and the condition will be checked for the fourth iteration, then the condition becomes false. Weight -1 not equals to -1, which is incorrect. The condition must be false here because -1 is equal to -1. So when the condition is false, you will go out of your loop and you are going to run these two output statements. So what are the output statements here? The user is going to see display messages as total weight. Here it will be total weight once you go out of your loop. So the first thing you will see total weight of the sack of rice. And since you have mentioned total weight variable here, whose value is 10 in the memory, so it will be displayed 10 here, which is correct. Next, it is going to show you number of sack of rice, and it is number of sacks variable that has a value 3 here. So we will put 3 on my display screen. So this is your final result and that is correct. This is what actually the user has did with the program. He has entered 3 sack of rice with the weight 532. So the total weight that is displayed here is 10 and the number of sack were 3. Now let me just quickly show you that how we did it in a Python online compiler. So I'm going to move here. We already did everything in order to save time. This is my Python online compiler. This is the same code that I just explained you. I initialized three variables: total weight 0, counter 0. You can replace this counter by number of sack. So, what is being done? First, before the loop, you will take an input for the first weight of the sack of rice. If it is -1, you will not do anything. Just number of sack of rice becomes 0 and total weight becomes 0. This will be printed on your screen. But if the user enters different weights for the sack of rice, then it will go inside the loop and it is going to calculate total weight, and here let me just change this counter to number of sack that is being calculated. Number of sack will be incremented for each iteration that tells that the user has entered another input. So it is number of, let me just do it quickly, of sack is number of sacks. So this is your method of totaling. Total weight equals total weight plus weight. This is the totaling method, and next to the totaling method you have the counting method where the number of sack are being calculated. Now the next thing is, once the user is done with all of the sack of rice, then it will say that number of sack of rice that are being entered are, you will just display the number that is inside the variable number of sack, and next you will show the total weight that is being calculated for all sack of rice. Show the value that is inside your total weight variable. Let me run the program here. For the first sack of rice, let's suppose I write -1. That what I wanted to show you. If it is -1, no need to go inside your loop. You will see that number of sack of rice is 0 and total weight of all sacks is 0. Now let me run this again. Let's suppose it was 5 kgs, then it was 3 kgs, then it was 2 kgs. I have 3 sack of rice and it is -1 now because I don't have more sack of rice. Now see the result. The number of sack of rice that we have entered are 3 and the total weight is 10. 5 plus 3 plus 2 becomes 10. So this is how the code actually works. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you have any questions, you can comment below. Stay tuned, stay connected. In the next video, we will be doing the same activity, activity 8.7, using Visual Basic. Take care, bye bye, and do not forget to subscribe the channel.